Hello everyone, my name is Rahman AI Wala. Today we are doing a call-in session. Which we have today our topic is what the backbone of early civilization. We have talked about that, and I hope you are well and fresh-minded. My
Take your time. I'm doing great. How about you? Glad to hear it. So, so what's on your mind? Take your time. I think you might have missed a word there. What exactly was important in early civilization?
I'm saying that why was very important in early civilization.
I'm, s- I'm still not quite catching it. You're saying more
Maya,
important, but more important than I'm
listen.
here.
Why
Just trying
was
to make sure
wood?
I've.
Why was wood important in early civilization?
Wait, do you mean the world in general or a specific
Listen,
part of it? Like how the
how
environment shaped where?
how did
Well,
how
for
did
starters,
how did people
I'm listening.
use wood in ancient times?
That's a fascinating angle. Are you talking about the actual development of spoken language or more like how they used writing to keep track of
I am
things?
topping a topic talking
You're
and
keeping me on
topic
my
is
toes today.
talking
I'm
and
with you.
topic is wood.
Listen, I'm all ears.
Maya, hello.
Still here. You've got the floor. What topic are we diving into?
Why
I'm just asking what we're talking about.
I'm talking about wood.
Got it. We're talking about work.
Okay, so Maya, I'm
I'm still here.
yeah. So
I'm
my
listening.
question was, how did people use wood in ancient time?
Wood was Wood was basically the Swiss Army knife of the ancient world. They
Not
used it for
wood, it's
everything,
wood.
building shelter.
Wood. Wood.
Got it. A road bird? I'm a little lost. What does that mean?
Maya, please talk on wood. Tree wood.
Okay, we're back to wood. Since you mentioned trees, were you thinking about how they used wood for building things or maybe
No, no,
for
no, no, listen.
heat and
I am talking about
no
wood.
worries.
Wood. How wood was important in early
All right,
civilization.
we that's a great question. It's wild to think about how much effort they put into moving heavy logs across oceans and land.
Yeah, I'm talking about
Ancient Egypt is a
logs.
perfect example.
Yeah, I'm talking about logs.
Blocks like
Logs, wood. Yeah,
right, huge
it's
dead things, huh? That's a bit of a pivot. Are we still talking about the wood and the logs, or did you move on to something else? I'm all ears. I'm ready when you are.
okay, okay. My first question was,
I'm all set.
why was wood important in early civilization?
We're back to this one. Since we had a bit of a mix up earlier, let's make sure. Are you asking why wood was so important or something
Yeah,
else?
yeah.
All right, let's dive in. Wood was basically the foundation of early survival. Without it, people wouldn't have had fire for warmth or cooking, which completely changed how our ancestors lived and evolved. Then there's the shelter aspect, building huts, fences, and basic homes to stay safe from the elements and predators. It also gave them the tools to hunt and build, from simple spears to the first boats that allowed them to explore new lands. It was the one material that was everywhere and could be shaped into almost anything they needed.
Okay. My next question was,
Got
how
it.
did people use wood in ancient time?
They used it for pretty much everything. For survival, they'd carve out spears and bows for hunting and then use it to build sturdy shelters or fences to keep animals out. Once they figured out how to make fire, wood became their primary fuel for heat and cooking, which actually helped early humans develop bigger brains because cooked food is easier to digest. Then you've got the bigger projects like building rafts and ships to travel and trade with other cultures. It was basically the most versatile tool they had before they had metal.
Okay. My next question was,
You're on a roll.
why was wood useful for buildings and homes?
Mainly because it's incredibly versatile. Wood is relatively easy to work with compared to stone, meaning they could cut and shape it into beams or planks without needing massive machinery. Plus, it's a natural insulator, so wood homes stayed warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer than a cave or stone hut would. Just made the most sense for anyone wanting a place that was both sturdy and comfortable. You're moving through.
Yeah.
I'm listening. I'm here. Ready for the next one?
How did wood help people to stay warm?
I think you meant wood again, right? Fire was the big answer there. By burning wood, early humans could create a consistent heat source to survive freezing winters and keep predators away from their camps. It basically turned a cold, dangerous night into a place where they could actually relax and gather.
Okay. What tools
What's
were
next on
made
your list?
from wood?
Tons of them. Hunting tools were the obvious start. Think spears, bows, and arrows, but they also made everyday things like digging sticks for roots, handles for stone axes, and even simple bowls or spoons for eating. It really was the go to material for anything that needed to be strong but lightweight. You're on a streak. What's the next question? I'm ready. What have you got for me?
Why was wood important for travel and trade?
I'm guessing you mean wood again? Because if so, it was a huge deal for trade since not every region had the same kind of trees. Some cultures had plenty of basic wood, but desperately needed high quality timber for things like massive ships or grand temples, so they'd trade everything they had just to get those specific types of logs from other places. Basically, turn wood into a luxury item depending on where you lived. What else is on your mind?
Okay. How did
I'm still here.
boats made from
You've got,
wood help civilization?
I think you mean goods made from wood, right?
No,
Those things
wood.
basically accelerate. My bad, I'll stop talking. Boats were a total game changer. They let people cross rivers, birds. We went from boats to birds pretty fast. What's the deal there? Boats. Got it. You were asking about boats. They basically opened up the world. Instead of being stuck in one spot, people could suddenly move massive amounts of food, resources, and ideas across huge distances. It's how different cultures actually started meeting and trading, which is how civilizations grew from small villages into actual empires. I've got you. Let's really break this down because the impact was massive. First, think about food and survival. Before boats, if your local area had a drought or a bad harvest, you were in trouble. With wooden boats, people could fish in deeper waters and transport grain from a fertile valley to a city that was starving. It basically created a safety net for human life. Then there's the trade and wealth part. Heavy materials like the wood we talked about earlier, or stone and metals, are nearly impossible to move across land in huge quantities. But on water, you can float tons of cargo. This allowed cities to become specialized. One city could focus on making pottery while another focused on mining, and they just swap goods via boats. That's how the first real economy started. And honestly, the coolest part was the exchange of ideas. When a boat docked in a new port, it didn't just bring spices or gold, it brought new ways of farming, different religions, and new technologies. It was essentially the internet of the ancient world. It completely shrank the planet and forced people to realize there were other ways of living outside their own little village. You're flying through these. I've got you got it. I'll make sure every answer from wood is actually a bit of a miracle material because it's so adaptable. Unlike stone, which you have to painstakingly chip away at, or metal, which requires a massive furnace to melt, wood can be worked with relatively simple tools, can cut it, carve it, bend it with heat, or join it together with basic pegs and ropes. It's also lightweight enough that one person can carry a beam, but strong enough to support a whole roof. That combination of accessibility and strength, let's really dive into why it was such a dream material for early humans. To start, you have to look at the tools. Early people didn't have power saws, obviously, but they had stone axes and knives. Wood responds to those tools in a way stone just doesn't. You can split a log along its grain to get a straight plank or carve a rounded bowl out of a stump. It's about the effort to reward ratio. You could get a functional tool or a piece of shelter in a fraction of the time it would take to build something out of rock. Then there's the physics of it. Wood has a quality called tensile strength, which is a fancy way of saying it can bend without snapping. This is huge. If you're building a house, you can create a curved roof or a sturdy bridge because the wood can handle the tension. Stone just crushes under that kind of pressure. And finally, there's the heat. Early humans figured out that if you carefully heat wood, you can actually bend it into shapes. This is they made the hulls of those boats we talked about. They could curve the timber to fit a Do you have more questions on your list, or we move into a new topic? I'm listening. I'm all yours. I'm guessing you mean let's break this down because wood wasn't just a convenience, it was the difference between life and death for early humans. First, you have to think about the absolute basics. In a world without heating or insulation, a cold snap could wipe out an entire group. Wood gave them the ability to create fire, which meant they could survive freezing nights and keep their children and elderly alive. It also let them build sturdy shelters that blocked wind and rain, which is a massive jump from just huddling in a cave. And then there's the food aspect. Wood allowed them to create specialized hunting tools, spears, bows, and traps. Instead of just scavenging or chasing animals by hand, they could hunt from a distance and with more precision. This meant more reliable protein and less risk of injury during the hunt. And finally, there's the psychological side. Having a permanent, warm place to sleep and a reliable way to get food reduced the constant stress of survival. It allowed them to stop spending every second just trying not to die and start spending time thinking, planning, and building a community. Basically, gave them the breathing room to actually evolve into a civilization. You're on a. I'm ready for the next one. Wait, I'm guessing you mean wood again, right? So let's wood was essentially the currency of the ancient world because it was the only material that could do everything. First, you have to consider its scarcity. Not every region had forests. If you lived in a desert or a marsh, wood was like gold. You had to trade valuable minerals or grains just to get enough timber to build a basic house or a ship. That scarcity alone made it a high value asset. And there's the versatility. It was the primary source of energy. Before coal or electricity, if you wanted to cook food, forge metal, or stay warm, you needed wood. It was the only way to power the early industry. When you think about it, whoever controlled the forests controlled the energy supply of the time. And finally, it was the foundation of technology. From the wheel to the plow to the bow, wood was the structural base for almost every invention that made life easier. It wasn't just stuff for building, it was the core of almost every single tool they had. It really was the backbone of everything. Do you have another one on your list? I'm ready. What have you got for me? Wood was the absolute heart of the kitchen back then. Let's look at this in detail. I've got you. Let's really go deep on this because the role of wood in cooking was actually a turning point for the entire human species. First, you have to think about the fire itself. Before we had wood to burn, humans were mostly eating raw things. But once we mastered the art of keeping a fire going with logs and kindling, everything changed. Wood provided a consistent, controllable heat source. You could have a roaring fire for boiling water or a slow, smoldering bed of coals for roasting meat. This meant humans could finally move beyond just eating what they could find raw and start actually preparing their food. Then there's the biological impact, which is the wildest part. Cooking with wood fire actually pre-digested our food. By breaking down the tough fibers in plants and the proteins in meat, the fire made the nutrients much easier for our bodies to absorb. This gave our ancestors a huge caloric boost because they didn't have to spend all their energy just trying to digest raw food. That energy went straight to their brains. Many scientists believe this is exactly why human brains grew so much larger and more complex. We literally fueled our evolution with wood fires. Beyond the biology, wood transformed the social side of life. The hearth, the place where the wood fire burned, became the center of the home and the community. It wasn't just about the food, it was about the gathering. People would sit around the fire to cook, share stories, and protect each other from the cold. It turned a basic biological need into a social. The act of gathering wood became a daily communal effort, and the way a group managed their firewood determined how well they could survive the winter. And finally, let's talk about the tools. Wood wasn't just the fuel, it was the equipment. They carved out wooden bowls to hold gathered grains, created wooden spoons to stir stews, and built wooden racks to smoke meats. Smoking meat over a wood fire was one of the first ways humans preserved food for the long term, allowing them to store protein for months instead of days. They basically gave them a way to beat the seasons and survive periods of famine. So when you look at it, wood didn't just cook the food, it built the society, fueled the brain, and created the first real sense of home. Wait, just to make sure I'm following, are you asking how wood supported family activities in ancient times, or are you asking about how I, as an AI, support family activities? Since since we're staying on the topic of ancient times, let's look at how wood really held families. I'm here. I'll keep the detail high. I've got you. Let's really dive into how wood was the glue that held early families together. It wasn't just a building material, it was the center of their entire social world. Routine. Gathering fire is a massive family project. This taught children about the environment, which trees were best for heat, and how to survive in the wild. It was their first lesson in teamwork and responsibility. Then there's the hearth, the central fire pit. The hearth was the heart of the family home. In a world of darkness and danger, the wood fire was the only source of light and warmth. Every family activity happened around that circle of heat. This is where the parents would prepare the evening meal, where the children would be learn the history of their people through storytelling, and where the family would bond over the shared experience of survival. The fire turned a cold, scary forest into a